With Caitlin Clark sidelined for the WNBA All-Star Game, the pressure was on the players. This was their chance to prove they were worth the spotlight and the big money they're demanding. They made their statement on the court, but the fans, they made a big statement of their own. And ESPN doesn't want you to know about it. The viewership numbers came out, and once again, ESPN is running cover for the league and its players.
It's fine to just say, just post the ratings. But, it is another situation than pretending like Caitlin Clark doesn't exist.
Caitlin Clark's fans called them out immediately, because this isn't the first time they've tried to bury her impact. But this time, after what went down on the court, it's backfiring. Big time. Let's break it all down. But first, like this video if you're tired of ESPN's tricks. And subscribe for more Caitlin Clark and WNBA updates. So ESPN has a habit when it comes to Caitlin Clark's impact on viewership. They don't lie, but they definitely don't tell the full story. Instead, they cherry pick. They use numbers that are technically true, but only the ones that fit the narrative they want to sell. And when it comes to Caitlin, the numbers they don't mention are even more telling. Take this, for example. After the 2025 WNBA draft, ESPN proudly reported that viewership was up 119%. At first glance, that looks like a massive win for the league. But look a little closer, and you'll notice something odd. They're comparing it to 2023. So why skip 2024? Anyone in marketing or media will tell you, you compare year over year, this year versus last year, not this year versus 2 years ago. So why would ESPN skip the draft from 2024? Because that was Caitlin Clark's draft, the one that drew 2.45 million viewers. And if they compared against that, the real headline would have been this: draft viewership is down 49%. But they didn't want that story out there. And the truth is, this isn't a one-off. They pulled the same trick during March Madness in 2025. In the second round, the Sweet 16, and the Elite 8. ESPN compared viewership numbers to 2023. Now, Caitlin was in the tournament that year, so at first glance it seems fair. But then, the moment they got to the Final Four in the national title game, suddenly the comparisons stop. No more 2023. Instead, they just said, third highest ever, which sounds impressive, until you remember the 2 years ahead of it were 23 and 24. Both years Caitlin made the Final Four. So what happens if they do show the full numbers? They'd have to admit viewership dropped by over 10 million. So yeah, they'll compare against Caitlin Clark if they beat her numbers. But if they don't, silence. That's not an oversight. That's deliberate. And the funniest part, they don't think fans will catch it. They think if they throw out enough big-sounding stats, people will believe women's basketball just keeps setting records without Caitlin Clark. When in reality, they're making it even more obvious. It's the Streisand effect. It's what happens when you try to hide something, and by doing so, you draw way more attention to it. That's what ESPN's doing right now. And Caitlin's fans? They catch it instantly and call it out every single time. Because every spin, every selective stat, every dodge just proves one thing. Caitlin Clark is driving the growth, and clearly, they don't want us to know that. But it's not just ESPN. It's a problem across the entire W ecosystem. Because every time the league, the players, or the media try to downplay Caitlin's impact, they don't diminish her. They just expose themselves. And honestly, at this point, it's become a comedy. When Caitlin Clark won Time Athlete of the Year, the backlash came fast. Not because she didn't deserve it, but because, apparently, everyone in the league deserved it. There were actual calls to include all WNBA players on the cover, as if the award was for participation. Funny how that standard only shows up with Caitlin. Because when A'ja Wilson or Brianna Stewart or Nafisa Collier get featured by Time or Sports Illustrated, nobody's asking for a group photo, and it didn't stop there. Caitlin won an ESPY, and her own coach couldn't congratulate her publicly without immediately shifting credit to every other player in the league.
Noticed or heard about it, but during the game, Caitlin got honored as the WNBA Player of the Year in the ESPYs. Just what does it mean to have her impact so far? I mean, there are a lot of really good players in this league, and she got honored as the best player in the league by the ESPYs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she continues to get new awards. She continues to break barriers. She continues to do things that we haven't seen before. I mean, obviously you think about the Stewie's MVPs of the league, and championship winners, and Asia's MVPs of the league and championship winners, and of course Sue Bird, who was sitting in the building today. And Caitlin is so fortunate, as well as all these guys, really. I mean, that they don't know anything any different than the WNBA.
That's how fragile the ecosystem is around her. Even praise has to be politically negotiated. And when the media does acknowledge Caitlin's popularity, It's never on her own merit.
I just said we would not be talking about Caitlin Clark the way that we do if it wasn't for that moment with Angel Reese. And I will die on this hill. I will die on this hill.
I was with you until that.
I will die on this hill. I will die on this hill.
They say it's because of someone else, a rivalry, a moment, a narrative, anything but the actual player pulling the numbers. And when they do admit she has millions of fans, suddenly those fans are a problem.
The new fans are sucking life out of the WNBA right now.
We'll start with you, Kels, because Lord Jesus, your team and their fans,
Jesus.
they be getting up in everybody's business.
I think so many fans, feel they have the freedom to say whatever they want to us, and unfortunately, there's a lot of nasty things that come with it. They don't have people coming to their job saying these nasty things. So, we definitely have to protect the players better.
And then it escalates. Caitlin's fans aren't just loud. Now they're toxic or hateful or racist. Apparently they don't cheer for Paige Beckers because she advocates for social justice. Or Caitlin should have picked Angel Reese in the All-Star draft, just to keep her fan base in check. Even the Phoenix Mercury got in on it, with a not-so-subtle message implying Indianapolis isn't a safe place for players. It's wild. Because this ecosystem, the league, the players, the media, is trying to diminish the player who's literally carrying the league's growth and punish the fans who made it possible. And they know it. But they'd rather protect their egos to hold on to power. Which is hilarious. Because the second Caitlin's fans tune out, that power disappears. And right now, for the players, that power is everything. The players are in the middle of a tense CBA negotiation, and they're hoping to cash in, riding the wave of a massive media rights deal that, let's be honest, is being driven almost entirely by Caitlin Clark. But behind the scenes, there are real concerns. Because despite what the media says, despite what the players say, the owners know the truth. This league is heavily reliant on Caitlin's appeal. When she's out, ratings and ticket prices don't just dip, they crater by 50% or more. And that's not normal, not in any other league.
I can't imagine, folks, you know how many NBA players can get injured? And the prices would never drop to this low. LeBron James can be injured, Steph Curry could be injured, Kevin Durant could be in, and the prices still will not drop to be this low. $75? Folks, I'm sure there's some high school football teams down in Texas that charge you at least $75 to get to a home game.
So when Caitlin Clark was ruled out of the All-Star Game, it put the players in a brutal position. This was supposed to be a marquee moment, the league's biggest spotlight, and suddenly, they were on their own. No Caitlin, no guaranteed ratings bump, just the players, and a chance to prove they could carry the moment without her. And from the jump, it went sideways. Ticket prices dropped 48% the moment Caitlin was ruled out. And that led to one big question. How bad would it get? Could the players pull off a miracle without her? Or would the numbers finally expose just how deep this dependence really goes? Well, the ratings are in. And ESPN? They went full damage control.
3-point contest. ESPN, ABC, and Disney score the historic viewership for the 2025 WNBA All-Star events. Friday, July 18th, ESPN airs the most watched WNBA skills and 3-point contest ever, averaging 1.3 million viewers, which is up 89% versus last year's WNBA skills and 3-point contest, up 89%.
The weekend actually started strong. The skills competition and 3-point contest saw a huge viewership bump over 2024, a great sign for the league. It looked like the players might actually pull it off. Maybe they could generate record numbers without Caitlin Clark on the court. But then, ESPN went right back to their old tricks.
All-Star Game ratings from this past weekend was the second most watched WNBA All-Star Game ever, behind 2024. No surprise there. The 2025 WNBA All-Star Game was the most watched program of the night across all of TV. The night, not the day. With 2.2 million average viewers, up 158% from the 2023 WNBA All-Star Game.
Did you catch it? They compared the All-Star Game ratings to 2023, the year before Caitlin Clark entered the league. Even though, just a few lines earlier, they had compared the skills competition to 2024 in the same post. So, why the sudden change? Gee, I wonder. Maybe it's because last year's All-Star Game, the one that did feature Caitlin Clark, pulled in 3.4 million viewers. This year, 2.2 million. That's a 36% drop. 1.2 million fewer viewers. Gone. And instead of owning that, they buried it. Can you imagine saying Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the NBA's all-time leading scorer, and then putting a little asterisk that says, except for LeBron? That's what this is. A deliberate choice to spin the numbers in a way that sounds impressive, without telling you what really happened. Because most people are busy. They see 2.2 million viewers, and up 158%, and think the league's exploding in popularity. They don't have time to look closer, and ESPN knows it. So yes, the numbers are technically accurate, but the way they're framed, it's designed to mislead, to tell a story that isn't real, to make it sound like this year's All-Star Game was, get this, historic.
Not this is historic. Like they were like, scored historic viewership. How is it historic when it's like half of last year? Last year was nearly 4 million. How is it historic when it's like half of last year?
And here's where ESPN really messed up. Because instead of smoothing things over, their spin amplified the problem. It triggered the Streisand effect. Everyone noticed the 2023 comparison trick.
Well, Uncle KC, ESPN was comparing this year's All-Star Game to 2023. Why? Why in the hell would they do that? I'll tell you why ESPN did this. This is another example of the mainstream media protecting the WNBA. This is another example of ESPN polishing the turd with this dump of a league.
Here's the thing. 2.2 million viewers is actually great by WNBA All-Star Game standards. But the drop, down 36% from last year's record with Caitlin Clark, makes her impact impossible to ignore. And it makes what the players did over All-Star Weekend kind of embarrassing. They puffed out their chests. They wore the protest shirts. Pay us what you owe us. They used a fan event to push their message about what they deserve. And here's the truth. It was a gamble in the court of public opinion, and it backfired.
The WNBA players in their pregame warm-up came out in these t-shirts, pay us what you owe us. And then immediately pivoted to playing the worst All-Star game in the history of professional All-Star games. They took the court in t-shirts. Pay us what you owe us. We're underpaid. This league has lost millions of dollars, but we're underpaid. Pay us what you owe us. And then they served up a doo-doo sandwich to sports fans.
And then came the cherry on top, Kelsey Plum. In the post-game press conference, she called out Caitlin Clark and her team, implying that they didn't care enough to meet about the protest t-shirts.
The t-shirt, just United Front, was determined this morning that we had a meeting for. And, not to tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very present for that. But no, we were just, we had a very... that really needed to be mentioned.
She said that in Indy, Caitlin's home market, after an event that was supposed to unite the league. It was an insane misstep. Instead of praising Indiana for hosting a record-breaking weekend, instead of celebrating the sold-out crowd, the city, or the fans, she took a shot at the one player who is literally giving the league the platform to demand more. Kelsey and others tried to laugh it off as a joke, but Caitlin's fans, again, the ones who are about to put much more money in the players' pockets, didn't see it that way. NBA champion and broadcaster Stacey King said exactly what needed to be said.
Quote, as you're fighting for better salaries, you're portraying a united front at your biggest event, you still find a way to throw shade at Caitlin Clark. Why? Stacey King posted. Quote, look at Sabrina's reaction to Plum's comment. It says a lot. Some of these girls are really petty, and someone needs to explain to them it's hurting their league, and it's sad to see. He's not wrong.
With the horrible on-court performance and Kelsey's off-court messaging, the WNBA players couldn't afford another hit. Dropping a 36% ratings decrease would have been the dagger. ESPN's declaration of a historic event was exactly what they needed. But right now, I'm just talking about the court of public opinion. The owners, they can see right through it. And if you dig even a little deeper, they'd probably be the first behind closed doors to call out that it's actually worse. If Caitlyn had played in the game, not just been on the bench, it likely wouldn't have just matched last year's $3.4 million. It would have beaten it. Easily. Just look at the numbers from this season. When Caitlyn plays, the ratings explode. Her games against the Sky, the Liberty, and the Sun have all ranked among the most watched WNBA broadcasts in decades, with viewership topping 2.7 million, 2.2 million, and 1.7 million, respectively. So realistically, if Caitlyn had suited up for the All-Star Game, we're not talking about 3.4 million viewers. We're probably talking north of 4 million, which means this wasn't just a 36% drop. It was a 50% loss in potential viewership. Here's what's mind-blowing about all of this, though.
Even without Caitlin Clark, it was the second highest rated WNBA All-Star Game ever, and that is a huge point of distinction. Two things are clear. If Caitlin Clark plays in the All-Star Game, it will set records. But now, because of her popularity, even if she doesn't, it will break records and be the second highest ever, only beaten by the time she played in it. And that matters.
Instead of comparing against 2023 to make it seem like some historic night, why not just say the quiet part out loud? Because of the Caitlin Clark effect and all the new fans, you just had the second most watched All-Star Game ever. And she wasn't even playing. Just admit the Caitlin Clark effect is real. It's helping the league grow. And, in the same breath, welcome and thank your new fans. That's it. That's all fans want to hear. Not this weird gaslighting, not subtle shots at Caitlyn after the game implying she didn't initially support the statement, when she's literally the foundation of everything you're fighting for. The reality is that the players are going to get more money. No question. Even though the league has taken a loss every year, team values have doubled since Caitlyn arrived. The owners have every reason to invest, they don't want a lockout, and neither should the players. But here's the truth. They could get a lot more if they just embrace the people making this growth possible. If they stopped insulting the fans. If they stopped pretending Caitlyn's not the reason the numbers are moving. Because the more they resist the Caitlin Clark effect, the more abundantly obvious it is that it exists. And the longer Caitlyn remains the only player those fans care about. If you're still here, drop a GOAT in the comments, because that's what you are. Thanks for watching. See you next time.